It's your job as a physio and a health practitioner to pick that player up. And if there is mental health issues, then deal with it. Mental health is an injury. Generally, we look at their weaknesses, so we'll use various different tests, including the Kangatech system, which basically looks at discrepancies and asymmetries within limbs and looks at particularly hip isometric strength. And along that and other components, previous injury history, it's a very multifaceted approach that we use, but basically we will lead on that aspect and we'll try and incorporate their gym program to make them stronger, more resilient athletes. In pre-season, it's a tough pre-season, and obviously you do pick a little bit of injuries in pre-season because the volume of workload increases. But when you get through that pre-season process and when the players get used to the training volumes that Daniel and his team demand, you just see I personally and everyone can see the results for that and the rewards for that, because it makes them more resilient to workload. It makes them a robust athlete. And I think the individual work that the players do, they're very professional. They invest a lot of time in their own injury prevention work, whether that be strengthening work, whether that be mobility work, whether that be regeneration, recovery work post-games. Everything's planned meticulously, and they've really bought into that process, which is good to see and really good to be part of. It is a very lonely time, and as a physio you've got to be aware of that and support the player, but you've also got to be you've got to set standards for the player, and your team around you have got to set standards for the player, because during that time you've got to see it as a positive time to maybe work on some weaknesses that specific player has, and when they do come back playing football they'll be stronger for that process, both physically and mentally. So as soon as the injury takes place, you have a bit of mourning time, I sort of like to call it, where the player is a bit down, but it's your job as a physio and a health practitioner to pick that player up. And if there is mental health issues, then deal with it. Mental health is an injury. You deal with that, you support the player. The club will always support the player. And ultimately, when the player returns to fitness, the player will be stronger through that process. It's a lonely time, and you see a lot of sort of stuff on social media. I know Carlton did a little piece, and the club put a great piece together on Carlton's road to recovery. The challenges that come with sports medicine and dealing with that acute traumatic injury, or dealing with problematic rehabilitation, or straightforward rehab's easy, it's nice, but it's sometimes nice to have problems and challenges that you have to deal with and have to think outside the box and to get that player back available playing football. We're always pushing the boundaries and trying to get players back as soon as we possibly can, but as safe as we can as well, because the worst thing could happen, you go through a long rehab process, you return the player back to training and playing games, and the injury reoccurs. So that's always got to be in the back of your mind, making sure that an injury doesn't reoccur. You always come back to the basics of a good solid assessment, a differential diagnosis, so making sure you actually accurately diagnose the problem, and from there treat the problem appropriately, rehab the problem appropriately, integrate them back into specific rehabilitation, then integrate back into training. I'll always come back to the core principles of an accurate diagnosis and a real solid rehabilitation.